Last episode, we talked about the stand of the Spartans and the land forces of the Greek coalition. When Leonidas and his reserves had his last stand, around 6,000 of the Greeks managed to retreat. These soldiers told of the brave sacrifice of Leonidas, making them into martyrs, and this helped the coalition gain allies. And with the war they were about to go into, they needed it. To begin, we must look at the other side of the coalition. Remember that when Xerxes reached Athens it was empty. There was no one, or next to no one, left in the city, and the reason for that is the much less talked about hero of the war, Themistocles. This man is a true legend. While Leonidas was the brawn, this man was certainly the brain. He was the leader of Athens. And to tell his story, we must begin 3 years before the war even starts. Themistocles was a prominent politician in the Athenian government. He was very smart, and when Athens discovered a silver deposit close to the city, he was the one who convinced the public that it would be better to invest in a brand new fleet. This was possibly the best decision of his entire life. Not only did it help Athens become the most powerful Greek city-state, it saved Athens on multiple occasions. Most of Greece was focused on land warfare, and thus their armies were mostly land troops. So when Persia attacked, there was no way the coalition's small navy could stand against the 12,000 ships the Persians were going to use. So Athens, ever the hero, joined with their shiny new navy. But still, they were woefully underpowered. 300 Greek triremes against the 12,000 strong Persian navy. This is looking familiar. But the one thing that gave the coalition hope was the design of the ships. This was the latest in naval technology. The trireme, called that because it was 3 rows of oars, making it able to travel anywhere, whether the wind blows in its direction or not. This was truly revolutionary in naval warfare, and it was with this fleet they managed to evacuate tens of thousands of Athenians before the Persian army could arrive. Now, I'm no expert in naval strategy, but when 300 ships can pull a stalemate out of a battle with 1,200, you have definitely done something right. And as the Greeks did that at the Battle of Artemisium, with roughly the same odds, it shows that they certainly were naval geniuses. But after the stalemate, the Greek navy retreated to the Bay of Salamis, but the Persians hunted them down and cornered them. This is where the Athenian strategists showed their true genius. The Persians had moved into position overnight, hoping to surprise the enemy, but this strategy was unlikely to work, since the short distance involved and the noises made by the rowers would attract the Greek fleet. Themistocles had indeed been expecting to be trapped in the straits, and he pulled back a few of the Corinthian ships to make it look like he was going on the retreat. The Persians took the bait and made to push the Greek line into the rocks, but these were Greek triremes and they were able to maneuver easily without sails, so the Corinthian ships rode against the wind, out of the way, while the bulk of the fleet maintained the illusion of retreat. So as the Persians pushed the centre, the Corinthians smashed into their side flank, decimating them. With this, the Persian fleet was in disarray, and as the main force of the Greeks rushed forward, there was no chance of a Persian victory, and they retreated. This was one of the best victories of the entire war. With their renewed morale, the fleet won another battle, and an even greater battle, the Battle of Plataea. Funny thing about this battle though, it was a land battle. The Persians were trying to invade Plataea, and with an army of 110,000, they thought they were going to storm through the Greek defence of 38,000. But that was not quite the case. The Persians moved first. They poisoned the water supply the Greeks were using, rendering it useless, so the Greeks decided to retreat under the cover of night. Notice that the night retreats are a terrible idea and never seem to work. They keep messing up. But anyway, when dawn broke, the battlefield was a mess. Athenians on one side, Spartans on another, and the third contingent was outside the city walls of Plataea. Mardonius, the Persian leader, noticed an opportunity and took it. This seemed like it would be an easy victory for the Persians, and at first it was. The Athenians were only holding on by a thread, and so were the third contingent. The Spartans were the strongest link, and so Mardonius sent his biggest contingent after them. So Mardonius, suspecting that the end of the battle was near, got on his horse and charged into battle. You see him here in this picture. He's the guy on the horse, in the gold armor, you know, the really obvious gold armor that Spartan's about to stab. Well, that's not actually quite how it happened. It's a lot more interesting than that. So basically, there's this guy, this Spartan soldier called Aramnestos, who's been fighting for hours. He's broken his spear, he's lost his sword, but he sees Mardonius on his horse, picks up a rock, and throws it at him with all his strength. It hits Mardonius in the head, splits his skull open, and he dies. And just like that, the tide of the battle is turned. The Spartans start winning, because Mardonius was an idiot. If he had just stayed back a little longer, Plataea would have lost, and the Persians would have conquered Greece. But no. And when the Persians saw their leader fall, They lost all hope, and they began to retreat. They fled the battle, leaving a victory for the Greeks, and thus the Persians were vanquished, cast out of Greece, never to return. This was the main deciding battle that ended the Greco-Persian War. At the end, thousands of Persians had been killed, and what was left of the Persian army withdrew north into Thessaly. Fighting between Greeks and Persians continued for many years, but the Persians would never invade Greece again. So why is it that we remember Thermopylae instead of these battles that the Greeks actually won? The ones that actually won the war for them? Well, like I said in the last video, and they held out. These Greeks, who were probably enemies a week ago, die side by side for something more than just their city. It was for the Hellenic culture. It was the idea of a unified Greek identity. Although soldiers not being from Sparta, Corinth, Phoenicia or Athens, they were Greek soldiers fighting for Greece. The historian Herodotus later used it to show an example of a combined Hellenic union, and that despite their differences they were all Greek, they all worshipped the same gods, it didn't matter whether they were from a different city, they all had the same identity, the same culture. Despite Plataea and Salamis being actual victories, they did not show a unified Greek force, they were led by mostly their own city-states. Thermopylae was the only real battle that showed a true dedication and sacrifice towards the cause of Greece. Another reason Thermopylae was remembered is because of the story. A small force holding out against a much larger force for one reason, their goal and their ideology. This was used later on to inspire troops in World War II. In fact, Nazi Germany was quite fond of the tale, Hitler himself having a copy of the book that was written on it. But yeah, we don't talk about that. Also somewhat popular with the movie that was made on it, and then wait, this has a sequel? How does 300 have a sequel? What could that possibly be on? But that's not important. The real reason it should be remembered is because it basically was the beginning of the idea of a unified Greek culture, the beginning of the idea of Greece. Thanks for watching.